It is less than a week from the September 12th early access launch of Chef RPG, and I think the question on everyone's mind is, will this restaurant management meets farming, meets open world RPG, meets life sim game be good? I am so confident that it will be, which is why I literally made a brand new YouTube channel just for it. I'm going to tell you exactly what you can expect from early access and why I'm so certain that it will be one of the best games of the year, maybe even the decade. If you're new here, which you are because it's the first video on the channel, make sure to subscribe for all things Chef RPG, and let's get into it. So what can we expect at the launch of Chef RPG Early Access? Well, here's a summary of the gameplay to start us off. So you're a traveling chef, you are given the task of reviving a restaurant called Les Sequoia, a once famous restaurant in the town of White Ash Harbor. You begin your new life in this beautiful seaside town, which was once a thriving tourist destination. You'll hunt, harvest, and shop for ingredients. Along the way, you'll befriend fascinating locals and help provide the town as a tourist hotspot. You'll also craft your culinary adventure in this open-ended RPG and build your food empire the way you want. The gameplay loop you can expect in early access is that you'll start off with a small and very basic restaurant, and through several different activities, you'll develop the menu, efficiency, and size of the restaurant. You can even hire staff to help you out. The restaurant will include mini games for cooking, which are optional by the way if you don't like mini games, craft machines to make expensive and fancy items, and a lot of quests and interpersonal relationships with the people of White Ash Harbor. The game will feature about 20 hours of story gameplay with many more hours of open world exploring and developing your restaurant afterwards. I suspect that means on launch, you will be able to get about 25 to 30 hours out of the game in one single playthrough very easily. Since you can manage two different types of restaurants in early access, it might even be a game you can do a couple of playthroughs on as well, which means you might be over 70 hours, which I think is pretty good. Restaurant, social house, pub, confectionery, and tea house are the 5 planned restaurant types, so it'll be interesting to see which 2 you can play off the start. My money though is on restaurant and social house because they seem like the most broad categories, and that just makes the most sense. It's also worth mentioning that there is a skill tree system, so there will be some optimization and customization of your skills throughout the game, as well as customization, of course, of your character. So now to answer why am I so certain that this game is going to be good, and why am I so keen on this game? Well, it's because the developer just seems like a very clever and precise individual overall. I've watched all his development videos over the last couple years, which by the way are a lot and something you don't often see from developers. His pixel art is so beautiful, and I just get the vibe he has a very broad vision for the game, which I think will mean a lot of interesting and meaningful content and mechanics. Also, some of his early game influences are some of my favorite and most stimulating games, such as Early Days RuneScape, Habbo Hotel, and Tower Defense. All of those are just very well done games, and if he's bringing aspects from other genres into this game, I think it's all going to work together to make something very, very intriguing. Pixel Architect, who is the developer of this game, answered what is in early access and why they chose early access. So, quote from the developer, Chef RPG features new and unique RPG mechanics, and we would love to gather player feedback and suggestions to refine these mechanics. The game already features a lot of content for players to enjoy. However, more areas and story content are planned, and feedback will help shape these future additions to the game. So I really love that, because I think when a game releases in a poor state and then they want a ton of feedback, sometimes people are already just not interested. But I think in this case, it's already going to be good, but because some things are going to fuse genres together and maybe be new mechanics, I think using that feedback to see if they should go further with that or focus on other areas will make the game better. So approximately how long will this game be in early access? 1.5 years approximately, with regular content updates during this time. And then how does the full version plan to differ from the early access version? So there will be more story content, new areas, festivals, and refined RPG mechanics for the full release. It sounds like all the base mechanics that are going to be in the game are implemented already. So in that sense, it will feel very refined and flushed out. There is just some more things like some character romance options and the second city that is mentioned in the trailer. Those kind of things will come later. So here's the summary of everything that is in the early access version. So overall, it's an expansive open world with a lot of content. This will include 3 main story acts, which includes over a dozen multi-phase quests, 2 restaurants that I mentioned earlier that you can manage and customize, skills including harvesting, hunting, fishing, mining, crafting, research, farming, and brewing. There is a skill tree with over 40 unique skills and a research skill tree that includes 36 unique research skills. There is over 20 major characters to befriend. I'm going to start putting them up on the screen so you can get a feel for who are the townspeople of White Ash Harbor. Some of them can be romanced. Over 30 minor characters, a dense open world to explore, and every building which can be entered, which is interesting because in the trailer there are a lot of buildings featured. So I was wondering, will half of them just not be open? But they will. 240 recipes to collect. Alright, so Steam Deck and controller compatibility won't be available right on launch, but shortly after. It was planned to be possibly on launch, but the developer just confirmed, I think a few weeks ago, it will take a little bit longer, and then Switch release is planned once the game hits 1.0. Will the game be priced differently during and after early access? If you're wondering, there is a minor price increase that is planned for the 1.0 release, so I recommend if you want to save a couple bucks, get it in early access, even if you don't plan on playing it till later. And so how is the community going to be involved in the development? So again, I already mentioned this, but they are really open to feedback. And if there's things that the player base feel really passionate about, they're willing to trend towards that and even determine how they'll approach implementing the additional content. All right, if you're wondering what is going to come before 1.0 is done, but still during early access, so as I already mentioned, controller and Steam Deck support, further developing the romance system, more festivals, fishing expansion with a new area to explore, more items to collect and furniture to decorate with, more character quests and miscellaneous quests, and implementing suggestions from feedback. Then when we get to 1.0, here are the things that are going to be added. Completed story and new quests, a new city to explore, which I want to touch on because in the game you see this futuristic looking train. Now, I'm assuming that train brings you to the town to start the story, but I have a feeling that train is what's going to take you to the new city. So I think as cool as it looks, it probably won't be implemented into the game until 1.0, but then that is going to be how you get to this new futuristic city with more NPCs, more quests, and more ingredients for your restaurant. So it's going to be kind of that late game content. Also mentioned is the other restaurant types. So 3 more restaurants to unlock and manage, the challenging endgame content, which will definitely tie into the new city, and then localization for multiple languages. I do know the developer has already confirmed this will be localized in Chinese. I'm not sure what the other languages are, but I assume that they will try to do as many as possible so as many people can enjoy this as possible. This game did very, very well on Kickstarter, and I think this developer has managed to capture something really unique and cool in this space. So that's why I just think it's already well funded. It's already doing well. It seems like he's already just can't wait to plan more content. For example, if the early access was in shambles, he wouldn't have added a feature 1 month before now. Something popped into his brain, and if you want the spoiler, it's a pet shop, and he was like, I have so many things to complete, but I want to add this into the game now. If there were so many things left uncompleted and the game was not in a good state, you wouldn't spend time adding one more thing in. So again, I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised. I think it's going to be an absolute blast. So stay tuned on this channel. I'm going to be covering much more of it as I play through it. I'll give you my first impressions, guides, and everything like that. So stay tuned and we'll see you at launch.